Now, staying on the topic of the NSA, there are serious doubts if the spy agency's tactics really are keeping America safe. On Wednesday, ProPublica called into question claims that have often been repeated by the NSA, by members of the administration, by members of Congress, and by members of the media, that the NSA's mass surveillance program has thwarted 54 terrorist attacks. ProPublica argues there is a lack of evidence to support such a claim. Of course, having to defend its surveillance programs was something the White House never planned to spend its summer and now fall doing. But then Edward Snowden came along. Similarly, the White House likely didn't anticipate having to defend its drone program too, which it's now forced to do after human rights organizations released reports this week accusing the U.S. government of committing unlawful killings with drones in Yemen and in Pakistan. So, have the executive branch's activities in the shadows, from spying to drone warfare, many of which predate President Obama, now reached a critical tipping point as citizens of the U.S. and the world finally come to realize their scope? Joining me now to talk about all of this is former presidential candidate and the 29th governor of New Mexico, Mr. Gary Johnson. Thanks for coming on.
Sam, great to be with you, and you hit on all of it.
Right, great.
I hope we've gotten to a tipping point on this.
Well, we'll have to see, and we've heard over and over again from the White House about this need to balance privacy and security, and as this ProPublica report says, that sacrificing all this privacy isn't necessarily making us any safer.
Well, and where's the balance when you've got we see today 125 billion phone calls being monitored, when a judge grants surveillance authority to NSA to look at 113 million Verizon users. And bottom line, maybe we've thwarted one act of terrorism, and that's really questionable. Look, we're throwing civil liberties out the window. This is the basis for this country. It is, and it's important, and it's being... It's horrible. It has to stop.
And you have to wonder if it is actually counterproductive. I think it was Michael Hayden or Keith Alexander, the current head of the NSA, when he's talking about these mass collection programs, he says, well, you need the haystack to find the needle. Isn't the question is why you're throwing the needle in the haystack to begin with?
Completely. And when you have a revelation that Angela Merkel's phone is being monitored, well, it isn't just the United States. It's abroad also. And when you talk about drone strikes, look, let's wake up to the fact that we're making more enemies because of, we don't just kill the target, we kill a lot of innocent civilians every time these drones launch a missile, and it's resulting in more enemies to this country. When you have this surveillance going on in the United States, it isn't just the United States that's looking at this negatively. It's the whole world that's looking at this negatively.
In regard to these spying allegations against Angela Merkel, and we've heard them against Brazil and Mexico and France now, what do you make of claims that come from the administration and defenders of the administration that, hey, this is a messy world, everyone's spying on everyone, friends spy on everyone, it's just the U.S. that got caught?
Well, I say baloney, and now you're back to just show me the results of why this world is so much safer for everything that you're doing. And that aside, look, I don't think this is constitutional. And yes, you would argue that it is constitutional because a judge rules that you can go ahead and garner evidence from 113 million Verizon users. To me, that is not the Fourth Amendment. That is not targeted law enforcement. That's not a judge looking over some law enforcement's shoulder. That is a blanket abuse of what due process should be.
A lot of members of Congress are waking up to that, and we're seeing momentum building for some NSA reforms there. But there's these two camps. You have people like Ron Wyden and Justin Amash who want to have very aggressive reforms to rein in the NSA, and then you have this other camp of NSA defenders like Dianne Feinstein and Mike Rogers who are looking for more watered-down reforms. What do you hope to see in the next few months as far as changes coming from Congress to the NSA?
Radical change. I mean, let's rein the horse in. Let's not make it any worse. So I'm looking at something dramatic, and that's the agenda that I think this country was founded on. Civil liberties are important.
Let's move on to drones. You just briefly talked about them a second ago. There were two reports out this week, one from Amnesty International about drone use in Pakistan, another one from Human Rights Watch about drones, and we have a picture of the reports here about drones in Yemen. And both reports allege that the United States is committing unlawful killings that perhaps even amount to war crimes. Do you think the U.S. is committing war crimes with its drone program?
I do, and it starts right at the top, the fact that these get ordered in the first place, and something that I've maintained, you know, for years during the presidential campaign. Look, we're making more enemies. We don't just hit the intended target, and where's the judge and jury when it comes to the intended target? We are saying that this is an enemy combatant, and with U.S. citizens. We've targeted U.S. citizens abroad with drones. Look, more enemies to the United States as opposed to less enemies to the United States because of this drone program, because we're killing hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent civilians.
You said this comes from the very top in the administration. When President Obama took power in 2009, or was elected into office in 2009, there was a lot of criticism leveled at him for not going back and holding people from the Bush administration accountable for torture, not going back and investigating and prosecuting people from that administration. Do you think the next president, which could be you if you decide to run again, should go back, look at this drone program, look at these surveillance programs, and actually investigate members of the administration and hold them accountable for what's happening?
You know, at one point I said that this should be water under the bridge, but the more I look at this, look, a crime is a crime. Thwarting the law, disobeying the law, breaking the law should be prosecuted.
When it comes to drone warfare and when it comes to surveillance, patrolling drones around the world, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to quickly point out that, you know, the Bush administration, the Obama administration, they're going to believe that they are legally entitled to do this. And they've got a cadre of lawyers to come to the table to say that, in fact, everything that they are doing is legal. But I say that you could have a cadre of lawyers come to the table to say that this is illegal and that this should stop.
Mm-hmm. These programs, they're global in their nature. And beyond legality, they speak to, I think, American empire, this idea of American empire, that these are the tools necessary to make sure that the United States remains the sole superpower in the world. As someone who ran to be the leader of the United States, are you comfortable with the idea that these are the tools necessary to be an empire?
No, I'm not.
Should Americans, okay, well, should Americans be comfortable with the idea of the United States not being a superpower, and would you be prepared to break that news to them?
Well, I say that the United States can be a superpower, but that the Department of Defense should actually be the Department of Defense, not offense. And that's all we've been doing. We've been militarily intervening in the state of affairs, and as a result of our military interventions, I'm going to suggest that we're a whole lot less safe, not more safe. We go in, we're going to back the good guys in Syria. Well, guess what? We back the good guys in Syria, and several months down the road or several years down the road, they're committing the same atrocities that Assad is accused of committing today.
Real quick, any plans in 2016 to run?
Well, right, my plans is to provide a voice that is not being provided for in American politics today, and that's just a simple mixture of being a classical liberal. It's civil liberties are important, military interventions need to stop, and let's balance the federal budget.
Governor Gary Johnson, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah.